The other news this week is that Saints are going to appoint a new women's manager before the new season starts. George, I know you covered this story this week. Do you just want to bring us up to speed on that and talk us through the thinking and what's going on there?
Yes, obviously Marianne's been the head coach basically since the club reformed. She's been there for the whole way through getting up to the Women's Championship. They just had their best ever finish in that league, most points they've ever got in that league, but they're disappointed not to get promoted because I don't think I've ever seen a team before go through a whole season and not draw a game. They won loads of games, but they lost loads of games, and that's ultimately what's cost them playing in the WSL next season. But I think it's quite an interesting thing that she's not obviously left the club. She's just moving up to a higher job. She's in part of the recruitment process to bring in a new head coach. And she was already doing a lot of the stuff with the women's and girls football program. She was overseeing all of that and coaching. And I think it's probably quite an important step that now they're going to have someone who's just a coach and they're going to have Marieanne carrying on with that role. And the balance of that, you'd imagine, it's going to be massive because if you're spinning multiple plates, then you're going to get burnt out. And there's only so much that you can do of both of them. So to have someone come in to just be the coach, it's going to be important that they obviously get the right person, because if you're going to bring someone completely new into that role and shake up everything, then it could go badly, because Southampton, since they reformed, have just been on a massive upward trajectory. And if you get someone in who kind of halts that, especially with how tough the Championship's going to be next season, you've got Pompey coming into it who look pretty decent, but you've got Newcastle coming into it who've got a lot of money. They've chucked so much money at getting themselves up, and they want to be in the Women's Champions League by all accounts in a couple of years. So they're going to be a tough side to beat. And there's, for now at least, it could change. There's just one promotion spot. So it's an interesting time to do it, but I think it's probably one that they need to do sooner rather than later, because Marieanne maybe has taken them as far as she can as a coach, and now she can focus on all the other bits, and it'd be interesting to see who they bring in.
Did it make sense to you as well, Steve, reading through that? Obviously, as George says, Marieanne Spacey-Cale staying on at the club, and she's obviously someone that they respect a lot.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously been vitally important from the very beginning, hasn't she? As George rightly says, and yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I remember having a brief chat with Alfie when we were leaving Anfield after that god awful events sort of awards evening, and yeah, I kind of said that it kind of felt there was a gut feel that was more likely to happen than not. Come the end of the season, because yeah, as George says, if you're spinning so many plates and the role is so important now, there's so much going on in that department of the football club. Someone's got to be full time on actually coaching the team, and I think if you can't sort of devote full focus to it, then something's going to fall by the wayside, unfortunately. And yeah, it's been. I mean, certainly the impression I get from all the quotes from the players this season is that they all feel really frustrated that they've not won the league. Now, Palace have outscored everybody by a long way, but they've not. I think we still won the same number of games, possibly.
I think maybe one less, but similar, yeah.
But as you say, we don't do draws. We've like a lot of those sort of tight defeats against teams sort of quite a long way below us are the ones that have ultimately cost us, and you can't. I mean, maybe if you had a head coach who was full time dedicated to the role, then maybe the focus is a little sharper, and maybe the players are on the performances a little bit, just that little fraction. I mean, it's the whole that sort of horrible Dave Brailsford marginal gains nonsense, but in professional sport, those little things do matter, and they do add up. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see who they appoint. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there's no names in the frame publicly at the moment. I don't know if you've heard anything, George.
No, not yet. No.
No one internal who could step up.
Well, I think if I'm right, I think the assistant, or at least someone who was part of the coaching staff for a long while, has moved on. I can't remember exactly the name, but I don't suppose, unless they were to move someone from one of the youth men's team in, sometimes you see the Premier League sides who've got women's teams do a sort of similar thing. But I would think that if you're going in for promotion again next season, you need someone who knows women's football, because it is a lot different to men's football. So if they were to move someone across, it'd probably have to be someone who's already working in the women's game. And I don't know if they necessarily have someone who's ready for that.
It's going to be a tough gig, though, Glenn, with this nonsense of only one team going up. We've played really well last season, again this season, and you've still got one team that are going to kind of dominate the league.
Yeah, you kind of read things occasionally written about, making the WSL bigger. When we played Arsenal in that game, the Arsenal manager came out and said, Southampton basically proved tonight that there's no reason why the WSL shouldn't be bigger. Because I think they only play each team twice, so the league program is only 22 games or whatever. So there's definitely scope for making it a little bit bigger. But obviously you can't rely on that. The rules. You would assume if they're going to make that change to make it a 16-team league or whatever, that it would be known at the start of the season, and you'd know the top four were getting promoted or whatever it would be. So, but yeah, you can't worry about that. The rules are what they are. But they have changed the level 3 because, the rules as they stood last year meant Pompey would be playing Newcastle in a playoff. That's how Saints got promoted. But obviously they're promoting one team from each of the North and the South level 3 league at the moment. So that's changed recently. So with any luck, it will change. But yeah, I think it will be a tough gig because the expectation will be there, regardless of who's in the championship, to do better than they've done this year. So they're going to have to. They kind of. It doesn't really matter where you finish between second and 8th or whatever. So next season is going to have to be better. They're going to have to be challenging for the top spot for longer and still be in with a shout for longer than they were this season.